I was 13 when I learned that trust could be bought, broken, and buried in the same breath. And I was 35 when I finally decided to stop letting my mother win. My name's Ryan Cole. If you Google me, you'll find vague articles about a tech entrepreneur turned real estate mogul. Maybe a few pieces about a failed app I sold for 40 million, and a few more about the nonprofit I started in my dad's name. What you won't find is the real reason I never did interviews, never talked about my past, and never smiled when someone mentioned family. Because my family, or more precisely, my mother taught me everything I needed to know about betrayal. Her name was Veronica Cole. Beautiful, charismatic, dangerous in all the ways a narcissist can be. Growing up, I didn't know how much of my world she controlled until I tried to leave it. My father, James, was a kind man, soft-spoken, brilliant with numbers, an accountant with a backbone made of butter. She chewed him up and spat him out by the time I was 10. I watched him slip into depression as she took everything: his house, his dignity, and every last cent in his retirement account. He died at 49, heart failure, though the doctor said it was stress-related. I say it was her. I left home the day after his funeral. 15 years. That's how long it took for her to reach back out. No apology, no context, just a text. I hear you're rich now. Let's talk. Mom. The old me would have ignored it, blocked her, moved on. But something inside me, some unhealed piece, said, what if she changed? Maybe she's dying. Maybe she needs help. Maybe I can finally understand why she did what she did. So I replied, dinner tomorrow night, your place. Her home was a quiet, 2-story brick colonial in a leafy neighborhood in Connecticut. Surprisingly modest, considering she used to chase hedge fund executives like a lioness. She opened the door wearing a navy dress, pearls, and that same disarming smile she wore in every con. She looked older, sure, but no less sharp. Ryan, she said like it was a song, you look exactly like your father. I didn't reply, just nodded, stepped inside. The air smelled like lavender and lemon polish. Immaculate. Still allergic to cats? She asked, gesturing to a sofa. I don't know. Haven't owned one since you gave mine away without asking. Her smile twitched. She made lasagna, poured wine, asked questions about my businesses, my travels, my exes. For 2 hours, she played the perfect mother, as if 15 years hadn't happened, as if she hadn't once stolen my college fund to fly to Aruba with a dentist she met in rehab. So, she said finally, after clearing the plates, why now? I took a deep breath and reached into my briefcase. Inside, a sealed steel box. I placed it on the dining table with a soft clink. $10 million, I said. Her eyes widened, but she masked it quickly. You're joking. Not a cent of it is funny. She leaned in. Why? Are you giving this to me? I'm not. I'm storing it. Somewhere only I know. I watched her. She glanced at the safe across the hall, the one hidden behind a portrait of us at Disneyland, age 6. You still use that thing? I asked casually. Of course. Fireproof, waterproof, bulletproof. Good. Then that's where it goes. She stared at me. Why not a bank? Because I don't trust banks, and because I need to see if I can trust you. She blinked. Her throat moved as she swallowed something. Fear, maybe, or greed. I pushed the box toward her. I'll pick it up tomorrow, I said. Until then, it's in your hands. She nodded slowly. You've really changed, I stood. Not as much as you think. I drove to a nearby hotel, checking in under a fake name, part of a ritual I'd developed over the years. That night, I stared at the ceiling and wondered what kind of person tests his own mother. Then I remembered the letter she forged in my name when I was 17, the one that withdrew me from college before I even started, just so she could pocket the refund check. The memory helped me sleep. I woke up the next morning to a missed call from her number. I called back. No answer. Then I drove to the house. The front door was locked. The curtains drawn. Mail already piling in the box. I tried the key she'd given me. It didn't fit. Gone. I went around to the back door. Broken lock. Inside, the living room was empty. Not just tidy stripped. No furniture, no photos, no scent. The safe behind the Disneyland portrait? Open. Empty. I stood there for a long moment, looking, smiling. Then I laughed. Not because I'd lost $10 million, but because I hadn't. She thought she took everything. But what she really took was the bait. And the real game had just begun. I stood in the doorway of my mother's house, or what used to be her house, and felt nothing. Not rage, not fear, not even surprise. Just the cold confirmation of what I'd expected. The place had been gutted with surgical precision. Furniture gone, curtains, wall hangings, even the ceiling fan blades missing. No dust, no damage, just absence. She didn't run in panic. She vanished by design. I walked through the house like an investigator. Not a son. Kitchen drawers open, but nothing of use. Bedroom closets cleared, hangers swinging gently as if she'd left minutes ago. Safe door ajar, the interior lined in velvet. The scent of lavender still lingered faintly, like the ghost of a lie. $10 million, or what she thought was 10 million gone with her. She'd moved fast, overnight, probably right after I left. No goodbye, no explanation, but I didn't need one. My phone buzzed. It was Dorian, my head of private security and longtime friend. I'd told him not to call unless it was urgent. Talk to me, I said. She's gone, right? Yeah. I picked up the tracker. Last ping was near Teterboro Airport about 4 hours ago. Private hangar. She turned it off mid-flight. Of course she did. I walked into the empty master bedroom, sat on the edge of the bare mattress. It creaked under my weight like it was sighing with me. Dorian continued. We got plate footage rented Escalade, prepaid burner, the works. She's had this plan for months, I muttered. She just needed the opportunity. She's good. She's a pro. There was a pause on the line. Then Dorian said, what we were both thinking. Are you sure you want to do this, Ryan? I looked around the room, then out the window at the quiet street. Perfectly trimmed lawns, distant dog barks, sprinkler systems clicking in rhythm. She thinks she stole $10 million from me, Dorian. That's not the crime. That's the invitation. By noon, I was back at my safe house of brownstone in Brooklyn, under a shell company, where I kept surveillance gear, backups, and certain contingencies. I opened the laptop and pulled up the logs. The money had been bundled in specially modified bricks reel, 100 bills on the top and bottom. The rest layers of professionally printed prop cash used in film sets. Enough to pass a glance, maybe even a count, but not the weight. Inside one bundle, a GPS tracker, no bigger than a thumbnail. State of the art. Battery life of 5 days, disguised as a metal security strip. I watched the playback. The signal moved from the house to the highway around 2:13 a.m. Straight shot to Teterboro. Last signal blip, Hangar 17B. She'd used a private charter. No passport flagged. Fake ID. Probably another alias from her archive. Smart, but not smart enough. I called in another friend, Mira. If Dorian was muscle, Mira was the mind. She used to work in the cybersecurity division of a 3-letter agency. Quit after a whistleblower scandal that nearly got her killed. Now she worked freelance mostly for me. She arrived within the hour, laptop in hand, sipping a lavender latte. You weren't kidding, she said, dropping into the chair across from me. Your mom pulled a full ghost move. She always was dramatic. Mira tapped a few keys. I've traced 3 burner numbers to one location before they went dead somewhere outside Miami. Looks like she made contact with an old flame. Do you remember a guy named Mark Thorne? The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Yeah, I said flatly. He was her boyfriend when I was 10. Ran a Ponzi scheme out of a church donation fund. Disappeared before the indictment. Well, guess what? He's back. And so is your mom. They've been texting under aliases for 2 weeks. So this wasn't just a getaway. It was a partnership. She's planning something, I said. Big, probably. You don't reconnect with a felon for brunch. That night, I sat alone in the safe house. All the lights were off, save for the flicker of surveillance monitors and Mira's ghostly blue code running across the screen. I sipped bourbon, letting the warmth trickle down while I stared at an old photo I kept in the drawer. Me and her. I must have been 6, maybe 7. We were at the beach. I was smiling with a popsicle in one hand and a toy boat in the other. She was crouched beside me, arms wrapped around my shoulders, smiling into the camera like she was proud. It had to be fake. I searched the photo for clues, anything real, but all I found was a note scribbled on the back in her handwriting. My golden boy, the best con I ever pulled. I burned it in the sink. 2 days passed. Then 3. Dorian's team traced the rental car back to a fake ID tied to an abandoned warehouse in Fort Lauderdale. Inside, nothing but receipts, an open laptop with a wiped hard drive, and a coffee cup with her lipstick on the rim. A message was scrawled in permanent marker on the desk. "Too slow, sweetheart." She was toying with me now. Typical. But this wasn't just a grift. This was personal. On the 4th day, Mira cracked a trail through a cryptocurrency tumbler linked to Mark Thorne's known wallet. They were planning a deal. Something big. "Looks like they're trying to move 50 million in digital assets," she said. "The 10 mil you gave her? That was seed money, a credibility front. She's laundering my fake money to bait real investors." Exactly. They think they're playing everyone, but they're about to get played. That night, I made a call. A man named Victor answered. He owed me a favor. The kind of favor that had no price, just leverage. "I need access to a private conference happening next week in Cartagena. Quiet, high-level invitation only. Dangerous crowd. I'm counting on it. You think she'll be there?" I know she'll be there. And when she showed up, she wouldn't be walking out with $10 million. She'd be crawling out with nothing. That kept me going. That kept me angry. The day I made my first million, I sent her a check for $5,000. Just enough to remind her I was alive, and that I didn't need her. She cashed it, of course. No note, no call. Just a deposit slip with her initials scribbled in the memo line. V.C. You see, my mother never loved people. She used them. And if she couldn't use you, she erased you. So when she disappeared with the money, I didn't feel shocked. I felt vindicated. She'd proven exactly what I needed her to prove. That she was still the same monster in pearls. And now, I had every reason I needed to destroy her. While Dorian followed her physical trail, I started tracing the psychological one. I needed to understand not just where she was going, but why. What did she want now? What was her angle? Mira pulled up her social traces, going back 6 months. She'd recently reactivated an old Instagram account under a different name. @Clara DeWitt. Travel photos, cocktails, designer shoes. But one post stood out, a black and white picture of a painting. Picasso's The Weeping Woman. The caption read, "Even the best masks crack eventually." I stared at the photo for a long time. That wasn't vanity. That was a message. To me. I started combing through her known aliases. Veronica Cole, Vera Kent, Clara DeWitt, Lena Fox. Dozens of IDs. Hundreds of accounts. Each one built with just enough truth to feel real. She'd been preparing this move for years. Even the house I visited last week, that wasn't hers. It was rented 6 months ago through a management firm she owned under a fake LLC. She hadn't reconnected with me by accident. She'd orchestrated the entire meeting to bait me, to see if I still wanted her trust, to test whether the sun she broke could still be broken. But what she didn't know was that I had changed. I wasn't the desperate kid looking for a mother. I was a man with a long memory and a sharper mind. And this time, I was going to con the con artist. "Cartagena's ready," Victor texted. The conference was called Celadoran Ultra-Exclusive Retreat for Off-Market Investors and Black Book Financiers, the kind of place where billionaires shook hands over blood deals and digital currencies. Mark Thorne had once been on their radar years ago, blacklisted after a scandal, but still known. If they were staging a deal, it would be there. All I had to do was walk into the lion's den. But I wouldn't walk in as Ryan Cole. I'd go in as someone new, someone she couldn't see coming. That night, I wrote a letter. It was the kind you only write once in your life. Addressed to her, sealed in an envelope. I left it in my desk drawer, under a file labeled, "In case I don't come back." The last line read, "You stole the last piece of me when you took that box, but what was inside wasn't money. It was a test, and you failed it." There's a moment in every con when the con artist starts to believe their own lie. For Veronica Cole, that moment happened decades ago. She didn't just believe she deserved to win. She believed she was untouchable. And for a long time, she was. I was 8 the first time I watched her lie with a smile and a tear in her eye. A man named Jerry had come to our front door balding, nervous, holding a bouquet of wilting flowers. He'd driven from 3 states away, thinking he was meeting his fiancée for the first time in person. Veronica opened the door in a bathrobe and gasped, like she didn't recognize him. "Jerry?" she said, as if the name was foreign. "Two brought you these," he stammered. "From our calls, you said you liked daisies." She looked at him with theatrical confusion. "I think you've made a mistake. I don't know you." He stood there, stunned, embarrassed, crushed. She shut the door before he could say another word. Then, she turned to me and laughed. "He'll get over it," she said. "They always do." By the time I was a teenager, I understood the pattern. She never worked a real job. Just new haircuts, new names, new men. She'd float into their lives like a dream and leave with their savings, their passwords, and sometimes their cars. But her worst cons weren't the ones she pulled on strangers. They were the ones she pulled on me. When I was 16, I got accepted to a prestigious prep school in Boston. Full scholarship, my way out. I was already packing when she walked into my room and told me the school had rescinded the offer due to a clerical issue. I believed her until a year later, when I found the letter under a stack of old magazines in the garage. It hadn't been rescinded. She had forged my signature on the withdrawal form and sent it back, just so I wouldn't leave her. I confronted her. She didn't deny it. "You would have abandoned me," she said flatly. "Just like your father." My father, James, was the only good thing in our house. A quiet, thoughtful man who loved jazz, crossword puzzles, and Sunday walks. He tried to protect me, gave me money in secret, taught me to read contracts and bank statements. But he was no match for her. By the time I was 12, she'd convinced him he was worthless, that every mistake was his fault, that she was the only reason we weren't living under a bridge. She drained his accounts, refused to sign the divorce papers, trapped him in a cycle of humiliation and guilt. He died in his sleep before he could get out. I remember standing over his casket, thinking, she killed him, not with a weapon, but with 1,000 cuts. After he died, I left. I slept in a car, ate from vending machines, took odd jobs: dishwasher, library clerk, tech support for old women who thought the mouse was a microphone. I built my life from the ground up, and every time I thought about quitting, I remembered her smirk, her indifference, her ability to smile while she stole. That kept me going. That kept me angry. The day I made my first million, I sent her a check for $5,000. Just enough to remind her I was alive, and that I didn't need her. She cashed it, of course. No note, no call. Just a deposit slip with her initials scribbled in the memo line. V.C. You see, my mother never loved people. She used them. And if she couldn't use you, she erased you. So when she disappeared with the money, I didn't feel shocked. I felt vindicated. She'd proven exactly what I needed her to prove, that she was still the same monster in pearls. And now, I had every reason I needed to destroy her. While Dorian followed her physical trail, I started tracing the psychological one. I needed to understand not just where she was going, but why. What did she want now? What was her angle? Mira pulled up her social traces, going back 6 months. She'd recently reactivated an old Instagram account under a different name. @Clara DeWitt. Travel photos, cocktails, designer shoes. But one post stood out: a black and white picture of a painting, Picasso's The Weeping Woman. The caption read, "Even the best masks crack eventually." I stared at the photo for a long time. That wasn't vanity. That was a message. To me. I started combing through her known aliases. Veronica Cole, Vera Kent, Clara DeWitt, Lena Fox. Dozens of IDs. Hundreds of accounts. each one built with just enough truth to feel real. She'd been preparing this move for years. Even the house I visited last week, that wasn't hers. It was rented 6 months ago through a management firm she owned under a fake LLC. She hadn't reconnected with me by accident. She'd orchestrated the entire meeting to bait me, to see if I still wanted her trust, to test whether the sun she broke could still be broken. But what she didn't know was that I had changed. I wasn't the desperate kid looking for a mother. I was a man with a long memory and a sharper mind. And this time, I was going to con the con artist. Cartagena's ready, Victor texted. The conference was called Celadoran Ultra Exclusive Retreat for Off-Market Investors and Black Book Financiers, the kind of place where billionaires shook hands over blood deals and digital currencies. Mark Thorne had once been on their radar years ago, blacklisted after a scandal, but still known. If they were staging a deal, it would be there. All I had to do was walk into the lion's den, but I wouldn't walk in as Ryan Cole. I'd go in as someone new, someone she couldn't see coming. That night, I wrote a letter. It was the kind you only write once in your life. Addressed to her, sealed in an envelope. I left it in my desk drawer, under a file labeled, "In case I don't come back." The last line read, "You stole the last piece of me when you took that box, but what was inside wasn't money. It was a test, and you failed it." Every con has a moment of illusion, a point where the target feels untouchable. That's the high Veronica chased her entire life, and I was about to give her the greatest illusion she'd ever experienced. Then rip it apart from the inside. The man in the mirror didn't look like Ryan Cole anymore. He wore a cream linen suit tailored to perfection, the kind reserved for off-book oil barons and disgraced hedge fund wizards. A silk shirt, unbuttoned just low enough to suggest arrogance. Custom loafers, Rolex Daytona, real but scuffed because new wealth doesn't command fear. But the most important part? The accent. A soft, lazy drawlin, American educated in Zurich, raised in Dubai, schooled in blood money investments and untraceable capital. Meet Damian Korek, my new identity, built from the bones of 3 abandoned passports, 2 shell corporations, and 1 favor owed by a very nervous man in the Caymans. "Suit fits," Mira said, standing behind me. "It's supposed to. Still think you can pull this off?" I adjusted the collar. "I'm not here to pull it off. I'm here to set it off." Cartagena was a city of masks. Beneath its beauty, the colonial buildings, salsa rhythms, and sun-kissed beaches lay a darker world. A place where reputations were built on offshore accounts and broken with whispers over aged rum. Celador was held at La Sombra, a private estate turned fortress for the ultra-elite. Security at the front gate. No phones, no questions. Victor got me in with a forged invitation. I arrived in a black SUV with tinted windows and a briefcase filled with counterfeit crypto wallets. The goal: blend in, get close. Wait, I didn't need to chase my mother. She'd come to me. The estate's ballroom smelled like gold and old money. Men in suits sipping top-shelf mezcal. Women in diamond-studded dresses discussing political realignment opportunities. Screens around the room showed silent footage of collapsed currencies and war zones, overlaid with blockchain ticker streams. It was a playground for the morally bankrupt, and Veronica fit in perfectly. She arrived like a queen draped in green silk, a champagne flute in one hand, Mark Thorne on her arm. I saw her before she saw me. She was laughing. That fake, honey-coated laugh that always came right before she devoured someone. I stayed in the shadows, sipping my drink, pretending not to notice. But she noticed me. Not me, of course. Damian Korek, the mysterious investor from Luxembourg who just moved 50 million in digital gold across dark wallets in under 3 hours. She made her move within 15 minutes. "Mind if I sit?" she asked, gesturing to the leather chair beside me. I glanced at her with rehearsed disinterest. "It's a free country, allegedly." She smiled. "I like your watch. Vintage? Stolen, probably." She laughed like we were old friends already. "I'm Clara," she said, offering her hand. I didn't take it. "Damien." "Damien," she repeated slowly. "You sound like trouble. Only to people I like." She was hooked. I could see it in the way she leaned in, how her eyes danced across my cufflinks and subtle tan lines. She was calculating. Always calculating. But what she didn't know was that she wasn't the only one. Over the next 2 days, she courted me, introduced me to her partner, Mark Thorny, a man who looked like an insurance salesman but talked like a Bond villain. He kept his distance, sizing me up from behind tinted glasses and stiff smiles. They were prepping a deal, a new fund for decentralized investments in high-risk political zones. Translation: laundering cartel money through shell charities and crypto wallets. They wanted me to front $10 million as a first-round buy-in, to legitimize the fund, create trust. It was too perfect. I agreed without hesitation, and just like that, I was inside the con. On the third night, Veronica invited me to a private dinner on the rooftop. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers. The ocean stretched out like black silk. 2 glasses of wine sat waiting, condensation beating like sweat on nervous skin. "Tell me something, Damien," she said, swirling her glass. "What's your exit strategy?" "Exit?" I said, feigning surprise. "Darling, I just got here." She laughed, but her eyes were sharp. "I've met men like you, mysterious, disconnected, always moving. You're not wrong. So why stop now?" I looked at her, really looked. In that moment, I saw the woman who ruined my father, the woman who locked me out of my future and called it protection, the woman who smiled while destroying everything she touched. But she didn't see me. She saw Damien, and that made it easier. "I go where the tide pays me to go," I said. "This week, the tide's here." She leaned closer. "And if it pulls you under?" I smiled. "Then I take it with me." Back in my room, I opened the encrypted line to Mira. "She's ready," I said. "Time to spring the trap?" "Set it." The next morning, Thorne and Veronica presented their proposal in a private salon. A 12-slide pitch deck, a crypto token with a meaningless name, and a glossy vision of future profits from invisible pipelines. I was reluctant at first, but by noon I told them I was in. 10 million. They handed me a contract, printed on thick stock paper with a fake legal header. I signed it with a flourish, then handed them the briefcase. Inside was a cold storage wallet, encrypted. Impossible to access without the decryption key I didn't give them. They'd think they scored. They'd think they won. And in that arrogance, they'd expose themselves. That night, Veronica came to my room. I left the door open. She stood in the doorway like she had when I was a kid, pretending to tuck me in while checking under the bed for cash. But this time, she wasn't my mother. She was just a con artist, and I was her final mark. "I knew you weren't who you said you were," she said softly. "Is that so?" "You're too smart, too prepared, too polished. Guilty. But I don't care." She stepped closer. "I think we could do something big, bigger than this, together." She touched my wrist, lightly. "You and me. No more Mark. No more games." For a moment, I almost broke character, because I realized she would have sold him out for me. Her own partner. That's who she really was. I leaned in, close enough for her to feel the lie on my breath. "Let's finish this deal first." She smiled, pulled back, and said, "Tomorrow morning, we close it. New life." And she left, thinking she owned me. But tomorrow wasn't going to be the close. It was going to be the collapse. Back in New York, Dorian had already moved into Phase 2, contacting the FBI's Financial Crimes Division through a mutual friend. The deal I signed? It was laced with enough forensic evidence to tie her to international laundering, fraud, and 2 open warrants in her real name. Mira had cloned her laptop during the rooftop dinner. Every keystroke, every private message, every crypto transfer. We had her. All that was left was the final act. Tomorrow, she was going to feel untouchable. And then, she'd learn the truth. The morning sun rose over Cartagena like a golden eye watching everything. Heat shimmered off the cobblestones. Locals set up market stalls nearby, unaware that several $1 million worth of digital fraud was about to detonate just a few blocks away. I put on my suit like armor, not because I needed to look good, but because I was walking into a war. Veronica and Mark Thorne were already waiting at the estate's inner courtyard private, manicured, serene, a place built for quiet, elite corruption. They looked like royalty, on the verge of a financial coup. She was radiant in white, hair up, red lipstick, no signs of guilt, no cracks, just hunger. Mark clutched a small silver briefcase me crypto wallet, probably imagining which island he'd buy first. "Morning, Damien," she said with a smile like silk over steel. "Shall we make history?" Mark added, ever the sleazy showman. I gave them both a nod. "Let's get rich." We entered the mirrored conference room at the back of the estate. The windows were shaded, the air cold and calculated. At the center sat the broker and intermediary known only as Javier, who spoke through a translator and held no attachments to anyone but money. "I understand the deposit has been made," Javier said through his assistant. "And the wallet is secure?" "Yes," Mark replied confidently. 10 million, cold storage, fully encrypted. "And the unlock key?" "Ready once the contract is filed," Veronica added. Javier tapped a document with a gold pen. My fake alias, Damien Korick, was listed as primary investor. My crypto signature was forged by me. Every detail matched, except for one. The wallet held exactly 1 in Bitcoin. The rest? A custom worm script Mira had designed. The second they accessed it, their entire history would be exposed. Every wallet, every transfer, every hidden stash, in every jurisdiction. It was the equivalent of detonating a nuclear bomb in their financial lives. "Shall we execute?" Veronica asked. Javier nodded. "Mr. Korick?" I smiled. "Let's light the fuse." She handed Mark the wallet. He plugged it into the laptop with shaking fingers. The screen blinked once, twice. A green confirmation light flashed. "Wallet accessed," he said, and at that exact moment, everything unraveled. First, his screen froze. Then another window popped up. "Hello, Mark." "Hello, Veronica." "Smile. You've just been robbed by the man you created." His face contorted. He clicked wildly. Nothing. Then Veronica leaned in. "What is this?" "Impossible," Mark said, voice shaking. "It's locked out. We're locked out." And then she saw the next line of the message. "You're not conning Damien Korick. You're conning your son." Her breath caught. She turned to me. Everything about her face changed in that instant. The smug smile collapsed. The mask shattered. Her eyes went wide. "Ryan?" I didn't say a word. I just watched the horror bloom on her face. Security burst in seconds later. Dorian was with them disguised as estate staff. "Hands up," one barked. Veronica stood frozen, her gaze locked to mine. Mark panicked, bolting toward the door. Big mistake. He was tackled to the marble floor, face first. Veronica didn't move. She just kept staring. "You played me," she whispered. "No," I said quietly. "I finished the game you started." Javier stepped back, watching it all unfold with mild curiosity. He knew what this was. A reckoning. "Is she under arrest?" he asked calmly. "International warrants," Dorian said, showing him the confirmation. "Interpol's already en route. Multiple fraud cases. Unpaid sentences. She's going away for a long time." Veronica opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Not an excuse, not a plea, not even my name. For the first time in her life, she was speechless. As they led her away in cuffs, she turned to me, her voice barely a whisper. "You planned this all along." I stepped closer. "I gave you a chance," I said. "To be different. To prove you'd changed." "I would have, Ryan. I swear if we just made it to the next phase." I shook my head. "You would have sold Mark out and then sold me out." She blinked. The truth struck her harder than the arrest. I leaned in one last time. The money wasn't real. But the betrayal? That was. Mark was screaming as they dragged him out. "Veronica?" She walked quietly, dignified, broken. Back in the room, Javier gave me a long look. "So," he said slowly, "Mr. Cole, that was entertaining. Glad you enjoyed the show. I imagine this is your exit now." "Yes." "May I ask why?" I turned to him. "Because justice doesn't always come through courts." "Ah," he said, smiling faintly. Sometimes it comes through bloodlines. Outside, Mira was waiting in a car, laptop on her knees, typing as fast as the wind. She handed me a tablet. "Here," she said. "Final damage report. Wallets drained. 18 stolen assets flagged. 47.3 million authorities notified. 5 countries. Full digital dossier. Sent to Interpol, DOJ, EU Banking Commission, and the IRS. Veronica and Mark were done, and every dirty secret they ever touched was going public." We drove to the airport in silence. Not because we didn't have anything to say, but because some victories deserve quiet. Later that night, back in my safe house, I opened my email. There was a message waiting from a burner account. No reply address. Subject line: "You win. For now." There was no body, no signature, but I knew who it was. She'd gotten one last message out before they took her devices. Classic Veronica. Even in a cage, she played mind games. But this time, I didn't care, because this time, I'd already won. 2 weeks later, I walked into a cafe in the center of Lisbon wearing sunglasses, a gray wool coat, and a calm smile that hid every bruise my mother ever gave, memento or otherwise. The story in the international news cycle had already crested. Infamous grifter duo captured in crypto sting. Interpol was holding Mark in a maximum security facility in The Hague. Veronica was being held separately, awaiting extradition to the US under a sealed indictment spanning 17 counts of financial fraud and interstate wire theft. But something didn't sit right. The email, the tone, the timing. "You win. For now." That was not the voice of a woman who was defeated. It was the voice of someone who had planned to be caught. Back at my Lisbon safe house, Mira sat on a beanbag with 2 laptops open, one streaming legal feeds, the other running decryption software. "You sure you want to keep digging?" she asked. "I'm not sure I can stop," I replied. "She's still playing. She's in custody, Ryan." "Exactly. Too easy." Mira frowned. "You think she wanted to get caught? Think about it. She's been running for decades. She could have disappeared into the Amazon or Morocco or gone full facelift and vanished in Eastern Europe. But instead, she walks into a fake investor's trap and lets herself get taken alive." Mira paused. "A plea deal? Maybe. Or something worse." I stared at the encrypted file that had just popped up on screen. "It's a shell game," I muttered. "And she's still moving pieces." 2 days later, I got a call from Dorian. "Problem," he said. I figured. She flipped. "What?" "Veronica's cutting a deal with US authorities. She's agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence." "Testify against who?" Dorian was quiet for a second. "You." I sat back slowly. "You're serious?" "They're not buying it, but she's got stories. Fake contracts, voice recordings fabricated, claims that you orchestrated the entire laundering ring." I laughed out loud. "She's trying to reverse con me in custody?" "Apparently. And get this, she's naming you as the real mastermind behind Mark's operations." My pulse slowed. I wasn't shocked. I was impressed. She was setting the board for the next game, even from inside a cage. The next day, I made a decision I hadn't made in years. I requested to see her. Legally, she had the right to refuse. She didn't. A week later, I sat across from her in a federal detention center in Virginia. She looked thinner, paler. The jumpsuit couldn't hide her posture, though still perfectly straight, head high like royalty behind bars. "I thought you might come," she said. "No, you didn't," I replied. "You hoped I would, so you could explain your next lie before I buried you with it." She gave me a thin smile. "How's Lisbon?" I didn't answer. She leaned forward. "I want to make a deal. You're not in a position to negotiate." "I'm always in a position to negotiate, Ryan. That's what you still don't understand." I tilted my head. "You're naming me to the feds." "Yes, but only just enough to get their attention, to get leverage." "You're going to try to blackmail the US government?" "I don't need to blackmail them. I need to offer them something better than me." I blinked slowly. "Me? You're unindicted. No priors. Publicly clean. They'd love to hang a trophy head in a room full of dirty money. A billionaire tech golden boy? Oh, that would be juicy. I stared at her. She was trying to sell me again, like she always did. She smiled wider, seeing my realization hit. I taught you everything, she whispered. How to see weakness, how to find angles. You think this whole plan was yours? I know it was. No, sweetheart, she said, her eyes gleaming. I let you win, because winning is boring. But surviving? That's the real game. I stood. You're right, I said. You did teach me everything. I leaned in close. And now, I'm going to beat you with your own lessons. Her smile faltered just slightly. Good. Outside the prison, I took a breath of cold air. This wasn't over. She wasn't done. And neither was I. Back in New York, I moved fast. Within 48 hours, Mira and Dorian helped me file a preemptive legal affidavit, outlining the entire sting operation, naming me as a federal asset and whistleblower, in cooperation with 5 agencies. The paperwork had been ready. We just hadn't needed it until now. We leaked Itananimius to Bloomberg and Reuters. The headlines hit like hammers. Cole, exposed crypto queen in global sting operation. Veronica Cole's son, hero or villain, behind the mask. The billionaire who took down his own mother. Public opinion shifted in hours. Before her story could grow roots, we poisoned the soil. Her deal started crumbling. The DOJ called Mira privately to confirm the trail of evidence. She won't get out, the agent told us. We'll make sure of it, but I knew better. Veronica didn't care about prison. Not really. She'd already built her backup plan. A week later, Mira called me at 3:15 a.m. Something's wrong. I sat up instantly. Talk. She's gone. What? She's off the system. No court dates. No transfer. No death certificate. Check again. I already did. I stared into the dark. She vanished. Just like before. We found out later, she faked a seizure during a prison transfer. The ambulance? Rented through a shell company she'd created 5 years ago under the name Lila Davin. EMTs were paid off. GPS trackers were disabled. Guards were swapped. She walked out the back door of a private hospital with a wig and a smile and disappeared. Again, Dorian looked at me across the safe house war table. We could find her. Eventually. She's gone global. So will we, because this time, I wasn't waiting for her to come to me. This time, I'm hunting her. You don't chase Veronica Cole with brute force. You chase her with psychology, because every move she makes is layered in illusion. Every escape lined with invisible thread. She doesn't run. She disappears. Not to hide, to haunt. A week after she vanished, we picked up her trail in Istanbul. A woman matching her build was caught on CCTV entering the Turan Palace Hotel under the name Estelle Kane. The passport was fake but high quality. Her mannerisms, shoulders back, chin tilted, were unmistakable. She left the hotel 20 hours later in a different outfit, with dyed hair and a new gait, headed toward the docks. Another ghost move. She was taunting us. You know what this means, right? Mira said, scrolling through footage frame by frame. She's not hiding. She's tracking us. Dorian nodded grimly. She wants you to come after her. She's setting her stage. Good, I replied. Then let's give her a show. We initiated Project Glasshouse. The goal, to mirror her game. Use subtle signals, leak traces of her fake identities back into her own network. Whisper into the dark corners she used to rule. We let a rumor slip that I was devastated. That I was liquidating assets. That I'd paid off Interpol to bury the case. In 2 days, we had an inbound ping from a secure server once associated with Mark Thorne's old laundering ring. The IP was rerouted through Cairo. The login credentials used? R. Cole. She wanted to talk. I didn't respond directly. I gave her breadcrumbs. A brief post under a fake handle on a dark web financial forum. Lost everything to someone I trusted. Some wounds never close. But revenge bleeds cleaner than grief. The post was signed with a subtle phrase only she and I would recognize. You left the door open. A line from a bedtime story she used to read me. A warning. A promise. The next day, Mira intercepted a cryptic message in an encrypted forum. Then come find me. I'm where you always dreamed of going but never had the courage. Attached was a single image. A broken toy boat floating in murky water. It took me a moment. Then I remembered. When I was 7, I told her I wanted to see Venice. Not the tourist Venice. The real one. I had read about hidden canals, abandoned routes only locals knew. I was obsessed with them. She laughed and said, maybe one day, when you're brave enough. That line always stuck with me. When you're brave enough. 3 days later, I was on a plane to Italy. We arrived in Venice under cloud cover and anonymity. No phones, no digital trail, just whispers and grit. Dorian assembled 2 backup teams. 1 local, 1 mobile. Mira set up a command post in a rented loft just off the Grand Canal. I walked the alleyways like I'd lived there all my life, because in some way, I had. Venice was the world my child self dreamed about, secretive, beautiful, layered in riddles. So of course she picked it. She knew I wouldn't resist. It didn't take long to find her signal. She left it intentionally through a series of poetic digital artifacts, an NFT minted anonymously, titled Golden Boy Drowned, a digital gallery upload of a faceless woman in pearls, a burner email with 1 word, brave. The final breadcrumb was a GPS location, coordinates in a lagoon outside the main city, a crumbling villa on a forgotten island. Of course, we arrived at dusk. The building was overgrown, ivy on brick, shattered glass, a faded coat of arms above the doorway. No guards, no cameras, just the weight of expectation. I told Mira and Dorian to stay back. If she wanted a reunion, I'd give her one. Alone. Inside it was candlelit. Dusty furniture, faded paintings, a piano missing half its keys. And her, Veronica Cole, stood in the center of the ballroom, wearing black, no jewelry, no makeup, just shadows and silence. You came, she said. I stepped closer. You invited me. She tilted her head. I knew you wouldn't resist Venice. You never could help but romanticize your crimes. She smiled faintly. We're alike in that way. No, I said. We're not alike. I know what I am. Her eyes flared. So do I. We stared at each other for a long, loaded second. This wasn't a chase anymore. It was a confrontation, decades in the making. I taught you how to survive, she said. And this game, you've played it beautifully. Except I didn't play it. I ended it. You think I care about prison? About money? She stepped closer. I care about legacy. And my legacy is you. No, I said coldly. Your legacy is lies. You don't build dynasties out of betrayal. I built you. I looked her dead in the eye. Then let me destroy you. She didn't flinch. Instead, she turned her back and walked to the far wall. A large painting hung crookedly, a weeping woman with coins for eyes. She pulled it aside. A wall safe. Old school. Mechanical. I want to make you an offer, she said. I'm not interested. I'm not offering for you. I'm offering for your future. She turned the dial, opened the safe. Inside, a single hard drive. This, she said, contains every secret of every client I ever conned. Politicians, CEOs, bankers, evidence, passwords, blackmail. I didn't move. You destroy this, she said, and I disappear forever. You want to trade me your enemies for your freedom. I want to give you the power to become more than me. I don't want to be you. She held out the drive. You already are, Ryan. My hand moved. I took the drive, but not because I wanted it, because it gave me leverage. The last leverage I would ever need. She stepped forward. I always loved you in my own way. Your way broke everything it touched. Sometimes, she whispered, the only way to teach a child to swim is to throw them into the deep end. I looked around the decaying room. I didn't swim, I said. I drowned, and I clawed my way out. She touched my face gently. Then maybe I did something right. I stepped back, drive in my hand, truth in my heart. This ends now. She nodded. I know. As I walked out into the cold Venetian night, I didn't look back. Because this time, I didn't need to. The hard drive felt heavier than it should have. Not because of its physical weight, but because of what it represented: 20 years of hidden transactions, forged identities, and compromised people. It was the nuclear option, and I had it in my coat pocket as I stepped off the boat in Venice. Mira met me at the dock, breath visible in the cold air. Well? She asked. She gave me something, I replied. Mira raised an eyebrow. What kind of something? The kind that changes everything. Back at the safe house, I placed the drive on the table like it was a loaded weapon. Mira and Dorian stood over it, silent. We'd seen blackmail archives before. We'd infiltrated offshore servers, exposed shell core, even sunk 2 crime rings in the Caymans. But this was different. This was Veronica Cole's vault, the Rosetta Stone of corruption. We connected the drive to an isolated machine. Mira worked fast triple firewalls, air gap, no internet. Dorian kept watch on the windows with a silenced Glock in his coat. Paranoia wasn't a choice anymore. The screen blinked. A prompt appeared. Welcome, Veronica. Enter passphrase to unlock archive. Mira looked at me. She gave you a password? I nodded. She whispered it before I walked out. I typed it in. Legacy is control. The screen flickered. Then, the archive opened. There were 7 folders inside, each labeled cryptically: Lords, Syndicates, Public Faith, Corporate Choir, Fixers, Assets, Levers, Contingency Protocols. Mira's eyes widened. Holy. Start with Lords, I said. She clicked. Inside, files on royalty, monarch, adjacent billionaires, and dark money donations that never made headlines. One folder labeled Crown Rook included footage of a prince exchanging cash for arms access in 2014. Every file was watermarked with timestamps, metadata, and GPS coordinates. This wasn't blackmail. This was evidence. Undeniable. Legal. Nuclear. We moved on to syndicates, cartels, yakuza, Euro, Asian crime families. All documented. Conversations recorded via burner devices Veronica had planted during investor meetings. She hadn't just conned criminals, she surveilled them. She's been collecting leverage on her own enemies, Dorian muttered, using it to stay one step ahead. No, I said, eyes narrowing. Using it to become irreplaceable. Public faith was worse. Politicians, priests, judges, dozens of them, some from countries I thought were incorruptible, caught funneling nonprofit money into offshore real estate and crypto wallets. A senator from the US exposed talking about manufactured outrage campaigns to keep voters distracted. A Vatican treasurer laundering funds through fake orphanages, each file more sickening than the last. And every single one tied back to her. When we opened Corporate Choir, the room went dead silent. It was a hit list. Tech CEOs, media moguls, energy lords, but not just names, actions. Each line item was a playbook on how to manipulate them. C. Rowan exploits ESG panic, stage ransomware hack, use crisis to justify employee cuts, offer PR fix via dummy firm. Nakamura offer mistress debt forgiveness in exchange for stock tip-offs. She didn't just study them, she designed their collapses. In some cases, she even created their rise through fake funding and media pressure just so she could own the fall. Mira sat back. This isn't a vault, she said. It's a kingdom. No, I said softly. It's a graveyard, and she's buried everyone inside it. Then we opened Fixers. That was when Dorian cursed under his breath, because the folder contained names of people like us. Private contractors, surveillance hackers, mercenaries, even former federal agents. Some of them we'd worked with, some we'd thought were dead. Every single one of them was on her payroll. She embedded herself in the system, Dorian muttered. Used both sides against the middle. I found a profile on myself, under alternate targets. Veronica had a full psych profile on me. Strengths, weaknesses, likely pressure points. One note chilled me to the bone. If Ryan survives phase 2, engage Plan Echo. Remind him he's not the only child. What the hell is Plan Echo? Mira asked. I don't know, I said, but my hands were shaking. Because the implication was clear. There was someone else. We opened the final folder, contingency protocols, and that's when everything fell apart. Inside were files labeled Re-entry Plan, Asia via Diplomat Proxy. Inside were files labeled Re-entry Plan, Asia via Diplomat Proxy, Balkan Safe Houses, Clean DNA. New Identity Cassandra Vale, US, Passport 2033. Fase 3, Vault Detonation. What is that? Mira asked. Dorian leaned in. Vault Detonation? We opened the last file, and the screen turned white. A new message appeared. Curiosity is a gift, but too much of it burns bridges you can't rebuild. Enjoy your prize, Ryan. But understand, I am not done. I never was, and neither are you. The screen blinked and then the folders vanished, deleted from the drive. Auto-wipe protocol. We'd had exactly 17 minutes of access, and then it was gone, just like her. For hours we sat in silence, processing. What do we do with this? Mira finally whispered. We do what she never did, I said. We use it to protect. Who do we give it to? All of them. The press, the authorities, the public. But what if it's a trap? It is a trap, I said. But we can't keep this buried. Not like she would have. That night, I took the only existing screenshots, encrypted them, and uploaded them to a public blockchain archive with a timed unlock. 1 month. No one could delete it. No one could stop it. When it went live, the world would see what she tried to control. And more importantly, they'd know where it came from. The final item was the phrase, remind him he's not the only child. I couldn't shake it. I couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m., I pulled out my old journal from college, a place where I wrote down nightmares I couldn't explain. One dream, in particular, had haunted me for years. I was 6. I had a twin in the mirror. A girl. She looked like me but spoke in riddles. She called herself Echo. It was just a dream. A child's fantasy. But now? Now I wasn't sure. Veronica always spoke of the long game. Always hinted that I wasn't enough. That, someday, you'll meet the rest of the family. I thought she meant her con artist network. But what if she meant something else? Someone else? The vault was gone. But the game was still going. And I was finally beginning to understand this story was bigger than me. Much bigger. You don't forget the first time you question your own memories. The first time a nightmare feels more like a coded message than a fear. The first time you wonder, what if the monsters weren't in your head, but in your family? It started with a photo, buried in one of Veronica's old safe deposit boxes in Zurich, flagged weeks earlier by Dorian, but dismissed as irrelevant. It showed a baby wrapped in violet cloth. Handwritten on the back, E. Venice, 1998. She's perfect. Don't tell RV.E. Echo? You think she had another kid? Mira asked. I nodded slowly. She always disappeared in the summers when I was 10. I thought it was for con jobs. But what if it was for someone else? We started digging, not through government files. Through ghost files, abandoned passports, hospital birth records paid in cash, anonymized medical notes. It took 4 days and 2 bribes. Then we found it. Name, Alara Vale, DOB. May 4, 1998. Place of birth, private clinic, Santorini, Greece mother, Veronica Vale, alias. Father, unknown donor, falsified records. No mention of me, no mention of a twin. But everything in the paperwork screamed planned invisibility. She hadn't just hidden this girl. She'd crafted her out of the shadows. The next question, where was Alara now? The answer? Closer than I could have imagined. Dorian pulled up a facial trace from Veronica's known associates. One image hit 84% match probability, enough for AI but not admissible in court. The woman in question was known as Elliot Dawn, a low-profile venture partner, in a startup called Doveline. Their business model? Digital privacy services. But behind the scenes, weaponized misinformation, bots, ghost articles, deepfake generation, account assassination. They didn't protect people's privacy. They destroyed reputations. And Elliot? She wasn't on payroll. She owned the whole damn company. We checked the registry filings. It was a shell firm, owned by another shell, run through Monaco. But the bank account? Linked to an encrypted wallet in Istanbul, the same one that pinged us 2 weeks earlier. It wasn't Veronica reaching out. It was Alara. Echo. I sat back in my chair. My mother didn't just disappear. She passed the baton. She had always said legacy was control. And now I understood. I wasn't her legacy. Alara was. She's the contingency plan, Mira whispered. She's Plan Echo, I corrected. I knew what we had to do. We had to find her. But not just to confront her, to stop her. Because if Veronica taught Alara everything she knew and shaped her in silence, without the scars I had, she wasn't just dangerous. She was perfectly trained. No resentment, no rebellion, no mercy. Just cold-blooded precision. The ideal heir to the empire Veronica built. We located Doveline's underground HQ in Amsterdam, not in the flashy canals. In the Undercity, the old WWII tunnels below the financial district, long since abandoned. Dorian got us blueprints. Mira cracked their building access logs. We weren't going to walk in through the front. We were going to crawl in through the forgotten past. Midnight, cold, underground silence. We moved through sewage tunnels, 1 kilometer beneath the city. Dorian took point, Mira behind. I carried the sonic breach tool we'd used once to break into a Russian vault. When we reached the steel door, Mira whispered, "Are we doing this for revenge or closure?" "Neither," I said. "We're doing it for the future." The door hissed open. We entered a glass corridor lit by blue LED strips. No guards, no cameras. Just that eerie, deliberate emptiness. Like someone wanted us to find her. At the center of the room stood a large touchscreen table. Holographic interfaces flickered to life as we approached. The table played a video file automatically. A woman sat at a desk. Not Veronica, but unmistakably her daughter. Alara Vale. Age 27. Hair. Jet black. Voice. Velvet over ice. "Hello, brother," she said calmly. Mira stiffened. Dorian raised his weapon. I just stared. "I've been watching you. Watching how you dismantled the Empire. How you broke her. I admire your precision," she tilted her head. "But you missed something. You always do." The lights dimmed. A second video played. Footage of me. In Lisbon. In Venice. In Zurich. She'd been shadowing me. Even testing me. "I'm not angry at you, Ryan," Alara continued. "You did what she couldn't. You chose morality over survival. That makes you useful." "Useful?" Mira whispered. "Which is why I've made a decision," Alara said, her voice hardening. "I'm not going to kill you." She paused. "I'm going to hire you." "What the hell?" Dorian started. She raised her hand. "You'll find an account in Geneva. Your name. $10 million. Blood money," I muttered. "Future money," she corrected. "Why would I help you?" I said aloud. The screen glitched then, her eyes locked directly onto mine. "Because you don't want to destroy what's left of her. You want to understand her. And to do that, you'll need me." Silence. "You're already in the next game, Ryan," she said. "You just haven't figured out the rules." The screen faded to black. But one final line appeared in red. "You can burn the past, brother, or light the way forward. Choose." We stood frozen. The screen shut down. The building's lights cut off. The door behind us sealed. "She knew we were coming," Dorian said. "She let us," I replied. "We got out. Barely." Mira tripped a failsafe breaker that unlocked the sewer exit. By sunrise, we were back in Berlin. No pursuit, no threat, but no peace either. Because now we weren't chasing a villain. We were chasing a vision of what comes next. I checked the Geneva account. The money was there. 10 million. Untagged. Clean. I didn't touch it, but I stared at it for a long time. She didn't threaten me. She didn't blackmail me. She offered a partnership, but not one based on family, one based on power. And somewhere, in the back of my mind, I wondered, not if I'd accept it, but how far I'd have to go to stop her. Because Alara Vale wasn't a ghost. She was a mirror. And if I stared too long into it, I might not like what looked back. The world didn't end with an explosion. It ended with a choice. Not between good and evil, but between who I was and who I could become. The Geneva money sat untouched for a week. $10 million, offered by a sister I never knew, born from the same manipulative mother who destroyed everything and called it raising me. A gift, a bribe, an invitation. We tracked her credit shadow through 3 countries and found a private investor using her signature phrasing in Tokyo. Not her, but close. We finally got a hit in Colombia near Cartagena, where she was first caught. Of course, she went back to the beginning. Veronica was never nostalgic, but she was theatrical, and this was the perfect stage for her return. Alara and I entered the compound at dawn. No guards, no alarms, just an open door and the smell of coffee. She was waiting for us on a rooftop patio, wearing white, sipping espresso. As if she'd known we'd come. I was wondering how long it would take you, she said calmly. Neither of us spoke. She gestured to the chairs. Come, let's talk. And we did. We sat across from her, both of us silent. She looked at Alara. You brought your brother. Alara's face was stone. No, we came for you. Veronica sighed. I'm so proud of you both. You shouldn't be, I said coldly. Oh, but I am, she smiled. You played the game better than I ever could. You evolved it. No, Alara said. We ended it. Veronica nodded slowly, folding her hands. You know what's funny? She said. All this time, I thought I was training heirs, but I was just forging weapons. I'm not your weapon, I replied. I know, she whispered. You're my reckoning. What happened next will stay between the 3 of us. But I will say this, the game ended, finally, and no one else will ever suffer from her hand again. Alara and I went our separate ways after that. No alliances, no promises, just the knowledge that we survived something most people never escape. The gravity of legacy. A year later, I got a letter. No return address. Inside, a photo. A child, smiling, holding a toy boat. On the back, one sentence. We break the cycle by not passing it on. There was no signature, but I knew it was from her, from Alara. I stood on a cliff that night in Santorini, watching the sun go down. $10 million in an untouched account. A world of secrets I could still exploit, and a heart that had finally gone quiet. Not because I got revenge, but because I chose to let go. This isn't a story about betrayal. It's a story about choosing who you become after betrayal. Because blood doesn't make family, choices do. And I made mine. And that's how I turned a stolen 10 million into the most satisfying revenge ever. But trust me, this isn't the end of the story. If you love dramatic twists, epic betrayals, and revenge that hits just right, subscribe to FunnyFun for more gripping stories every week. Don't forget to like, share, and drop a comment below, because some legacies are meant to be broken. Thanks for watching FunnyFun revenge story videos. Tomorrow will be released new revenge video for you.